Today, there is a grave issue facing the low socio-economic demographic, or low SES community of the United States. The issue? Housing. In the words of the renowned New York Congressman Velazquez, fair and affordable housing is a basic right for all New Yorkers and all Americans. Her quote poses the question, what is a basic right? And how do we fulfill this basic right to any and all Americans? The United Nations Council stands in affirmation with Congressman Velazquez, remarking, basic rights are inherent to all human beings, regardless of race, sex, and among other factors. Therefore, utilizing an ethical line of framework, one can infer we as humans have an essential right to housing. If we have this basic right, why are there so many barriers keeping Americans from owning this coveted roof over their head? Capitalism at its finest. Asserting the wealthy class to remain superior while the destitute wallow in a sea of missed opportunities and means to contribute to society. To best understand the home buying process, we look to Victoria Araj, leader in mortgage industry for more than 15 years. She guides us along the home buying process using her 13 steps to home ownership model. This presentation, however, will not reach her model's fruition. Unfortunately, there are just too many barriers that currently exist for low SES individuals to compete her 13-step plan. Through this evaluation, we expose these inequities that exist within the home buying process, inequities that perpetuate the ever-evolving cycle of poverty. So we peer into the Old Testament, where Solomon says, whoever opposes the poor shows the contempt for their maker, but whoever is kind to the needy honors God. Proverbs 14:31. Following this sentiment from the Old Testament, we can see how society disdains low SES and prevents them from being able to be viable members in society. Beginning with step 1, Araj says the first thing to distinguish when buying a home is one's income and employment status. She explains, before one heads to the bank, they should gather all the right documentation together. The Huffington Post exposed this problem as an inequity with their February 2021 article, Why Language is One of the Biggest Barriers to Home Ownership for Spanish Speakers in the U.S. They state a report conducted by the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, the NAH-REP, revealed that 33% of Hispanic population in the U.S. are immigrants and their first language is Spanish. What's more, Spanish-speaking immigrants have more than $1.7 trillion in buying power, yet continually are underserved and underrepresented. This occurs because tax documentation, income verification, and closing contracts, among other things, are rarely presented in Spanish, their native language. Through their analysis, we can see how this basic need of housing in the Latinx community is not being fulfilled due to a language barrier that exists within the housing market. Now, language is not the only inequity that exists today when purchasing a home. Dissecting a government program that its entire premise is to serve low SES communities, the USDA, or the United States Department of Agriculture subsection Rural Development's loan showcases the many holes that exist within the system. These holes bar individuals from becoming potential homeowners. Now, one may inquire, what exactly does this program do? According to the USDA.gov, their program helps very low-income SES applicants by buying decent, safe, and sanitary housing in an eligible rural area by providing payment assistance to the applicant. So what's the catch? Several factors are considered when determining eligibility for this program. At a minimum, applicants must have an adjusted income that is at or below the applicable low-income limit for the area. Currently, here in Brownwood, Texas, the limit is $34,950 for one person before taxes. This figure advocates for each additional person that's added to the mortgage loan. Secondly, properties financed through their program, 1, must be modest in size for the area. 2, cannot have a market value higher than the applicable area loan limit. And lastly, 3, cannot be utilized for income-producing activities, i.e., one cannot rent out a space within the property to pay for their mortgage. What's more, an applicant must meet the following criterion. A, they must be currently without decent, safe, and sanitary housing, i.e., you must be an individual who is homeless or one who is about to become homeless. B, are currently unable to obtain a loan from other resources, or one who cannot afford their down payment or pay for closing costs. C, they must agree to occupy the property as their principal residence. D, they must have the legal capacity to incur a loan obligation, i.e., one cannot have any misdemeanor crimes within the last decade or have any felonies on their record throughout their lifetime. E, they must be a U.S. citizen or meet eligible non-citizen requirements, i.e., they cannot be a DACA recipient. They must be granted asylum by the U.S. to flee their previous nation. And lastly, F, They cannot be suspended or debarred from participation in federal programs such as TAMF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, SSI, SSDI, Social Security Insurance and Social Security Disability Insurance, and IRS default, among others. With these countless barriers and regulations that exist for individuals that the federal government deems very low income, it is easily recognizable how difficult it is for low SES individuals to attain home ownership. With these inequities in clear view, Araj shows us the next step in the home buying process. She explains the second thing one needs to know when purchasing a home is their debt-to-income ratio, or DTI. According to consumerfinance.gov, or the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, DTI is figured out by adding up all of one's monthly debt payments and then dividing them by their gross monthly income, or the amount of money one has earned before taxes and deductions have been taken out of their check. The USDA's DTI requirement is 41% and is only one of the few factors that are needed to acquire a Section 502 direct loan from the USDA. The last factor in determining eligibility is having a minimum credit score of 620, averaged by all three credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Accordingly, DTI creates a huge income inequity for low SES applicants. According to Argyle et al. And their research on income disparities in relation to credit scores in the United States, they found the U.S. populace has a poverty disparity in obscene numbers. Their findings were conducted from surveys issued from 2017 to 2021. The applicant prerequisite for the survey was individuals who are 25 years of age and older. In conjunction with this prerequisite, they were measured demographics of different regions, median household incomes, poverty rates in their analysis. These regions were the Northeast, the Midwest, the West, and the South. To help guide this presentation, I will be performing a comparative analysis between the region of the most affluence and the greatest in destitution. The affluent region is the Northeast, which yielded a median household income of $77,015 and a poverty rate of 11.6%. The destitute region was the South, which yielded a median household income of $63,524 and a poverty rate of 13.9%. This equates to a median household income disparity of $13,491 on average and a poverty rate disparity of 2.3%. Granted, the poverty rate disparity does not sound like much at face value, but if you refer to the income disparity, this equates to $1,124.25 more each month the Northeast is acquiring than the average citizen in the South is ever receiving. The 2.3% poverty disparity now begins to form a much different picture. One element Argyle and their colleagues missed in their analysis was the average household income demographics for low SES communities. However, this demographic aside, their findings revealed the South has the highest rate of poverty, the lowest income, the lowest education rates, and lastly, the lowest credit scores of any region in the country. As mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, we use Araj's 13 steps to home ownership to guide our way to fruition. Unfortunately, as we've seen today on multiple accounts, the low SES community is just simply not able to get there. If we recount Congressman Velasquez's words and sentiments of the UN Council, it is evident Americans have an essential right to housing, regardless of race, sex, nationality, and ethnicity, among other attributing factors. Today we revealed inequities that bar so many Americans from owning this coveted roof over their head. Inequities from a language barrier that exists in the housing market today, to a federal loan program that is designed to help low SES communities, yet sets egregious standards that makes home ownership completely unattainable. Credit score requirements that cater to the affluent status and retain the low SES individual in a sea of destitution. And lastly, DTI, which once more puts an unprecedented wall in front of applicants trying to evade the continuous cycle of poverty. Today we expose capitalism at its finest. So much so that Araj's 13 steps end for the low SES individual at chapter 2. When will this change? Well, in the words of Anton Chekhov, we might find the answer. Knowledge is of no value unless you put it into practice.